Sunapa, protectors of the Sunapa, protectors of the Sunnah.
Ina alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to another session of our series on the Jinn. And today, what we're going to do, I'm not going to give you a quiz today because we have another class at 7. But instead, today is the day in which we're going to speak about Jinn possession. So all of you who have been waiting to hear about Jinn possession, that's what we're going to speak about today. And there really isn't much to say about Jinn possession. It does indeed happen, but I want you to know it doesn't happen as often as many Muslims try to make it seem like it does. When you go to many Muslim cultures, especially the cultures in Africa, the Muslim countries in Africa, they like to put everything on the Jinn. And that was because before Islam spread it through Africa, and Islam did not spread through Africa until the Caliphate of Uthman. Under the Uthman was the one who took Islam across the sea. Okay. Uthman was the one. Okay, what's all this recording going on, guys? The only person that should be recording is me. So the rest of the people here who are moderators, you guys don't have to record. The only one that needs to record is me, and I'm recording, because if you guys record, it's going to be on your computer and not mine. So don't worry about it. Plus, that's why I have Facebook as a backup. So if I'm recording, that's enough. Okay, but anyway, what happened was during the Caliphate of Uthman, Islam spread across the ocean, and it went into Africa and the lands over there. And before the advent of Islam, the Africans were into a lot of voodoo. They were into a lot of magic. They were into worshiping the trees and other things, and worshiping their ancestors. And they were just like the Arabs. The Arabs and the Africans are so similar. They blamed everything on jinns, just like the Arabs did before Islam. Before Islam, you know, anything that happened, the Arabs would say the jinns did it. Well, even though the Africans didn't refer to them, the devils, as jinns, they had their own name for it, but everything that happened with a person, that person's possessed, or the devil has that person in its grip. So unfortunately, when Islam spread, these beliefs spread it with it. You know, people would convert to Islam, but they would bring their cultural beliefs into it too. That's how innovation began. Okay, it wasn't just the Africans, the people, the Asian part of the world, the Indians. They used to worship the dead and stuff like that too. And they believed in jinns and stuff too. They brought that into Islam, and also even the Persians did that. So, you know, this is not just Africa, but I'm speaking about Africa today because it's very, very prominent there. And a lot of my students here come from Africa, and they're always telling me how their families blame everything on the jinn. If a person, you know, starts acting strange, that person's possessed. If that person has a mental problem, because mental issues are very prominent amongst us, you know, oh, that person's possessed. If a person doesn't practice their religion, oh, he or she is possessed. If a person doesn't pray, they're possessed. Okay, and so, you know, but this is not the case. And also another thing is, even if they believe a person is possessed, they don't know how to treat it properly. You know, many people believe that when a person is possessed by a jinn, all you do is read Quran. This is incorrect. You can read Quran all you want to. That's not how you expel a jinn. If a person is possessed, reading the Quran is not enough. There's other things we have to do. And that's what I'm going to speak about today. What does Islam teach us to do to expel a jinn? And it's not what you guys see people doing in your homeland, sitting there just reading the Quran. That ain't going to get it. And I can speak about this topic. And I can speak about it in detail from my own experience, because I've spent the past 36 years of my life working with individuals, many of whom were possessed by their jinn. And I had to go to work, and I had to expel the jinns, or I had to get those jinns out, or whatever. And I'm telling you guys, reading the Quran is not enough. It's not enough. It takes a lot more. And also, before I begin this discussion, I want you guys to know that not everyone can expel a jinn. You have to be a certain type of person to expel a jinn. Number one, you have to be a person that is strong in your belief system. And you have to be a person that has the correct belief system. If you are an innovator who worships the dead, you can't expel nobody's jinn. Their jinn will possess you. If you're a person that doesn't understand Islam from A to Z, if you can't answer, for example, the questions on my quizzes are basic belief. If you can't pass all my quizzes, then you ain't qualified to even think you can tackle a jinn. That jinn will take you, and it will take you out. I've seen it happen. Take people out, possess you, cause you to jump out a window, possess you, knock you into a wall. I've seen it all. Possess you and throw you in a toilet, put your head in a toilet. I've seen it all. And that's why when I used to work, you know, my co-workers were not Muslim, most of them. When I did work with Muslims, you know, we did handle it. We handled it and shocked everyone. But when I went to another place to work and I was the only Muslim, I had to do it myself. And I've seen those jinns, and to this day, they're still beating the heck out of them people. My job is begging me to come back, but I'm not. Okay, because you have to have the correct belief system to tackle them. Otherwise, they will tackle you, because your jinn will connect with theirs and tell them, oh, this person don't even make salah. Oh, this person, she can't even handle her own problems. And those jinns will jump on you, come in you, and take you out. If you're a kafir, like my co-workers were, oh my God, you're gonna get messed up. You'll be sitting there saying, oh, Layla, like they were, and still doing. Okay, so we're gonna begin discussion. So I can speak about this from my own experience, because I've dealt with it for 36 years. And I'm telling you, and it's nothing that we should fear. A lot of people, they hear about jinn possession, they get afraid and scared. No, like I tell you guys, the jinns, even though they're stronger than us, even though they have powers we don't have, you know, they're stupid creatures. They don't have the intelligence that we have. They're dumber than we are. You guys see the movie Shrek? They're dumb like an ogre. They can't think fast. They can't think straight. And they're stupid. And when you deal with them, like what I had to do over the years, dealing with people possessed with them, you get to see how stupid they are. And it takes your fear away. I don't fear any jinn. I'm not ever afraid of a jinn, you know, because I just know they're just ignorant, and they're stupid, and they're weak. Okay, so with that said, let me begin. Let me begin. Hold on, let me make sure I got everything together here. Let me begin this discussion. And again, I'm speaking also from my own experience because I've dealt with this for 36 years. Still dealing with it. Sometimes I'll get phone calls from my ex-co-workers asking me to talk to a client. Oh, she's going through it, Layla, here, get on the phone, do what you do. So I still, even though I'm retired, I'm still dealing with it, some of them. Okay, so let me put the PowerPoint up on the screen. And by the way, this is session number 25. Let me put it up here for those of you. I'm trying to open it up so you can see. For those of you, you can see me and you can see my screen now. People on Facebook, you can see me and you can see my screen. Okay, here it is. This is the World of the Jinn, session 25. So if you go to our YouTube channel, tonight to look at because I'm recording this now, you will look for this session number 25. This is the one dealing with Jinn possession, and I got it written there. Okay, so let's start it off. A lot of people asked a question, many of you have asked, and I told you I wouldn't answer it until today. A lot of people ask, what causes a jinn to possess a human being? Can a jinn possess any human being? We've talked about this a little bit. I told you guys, the jinn, they can only harm you if you are, number one, weak in your aqidah, which is your belief system, and weak in your practice. What does that mean? That means you're not practicing your religion right. You're one of those Muslims that don't pray. You're one of the people like here in the clubhouse who just left out because they know I'm getting ready to say it. You're a woman and you're not wearing hijab. That's why the clubhouse people can't stand and listen to this. Because most of the Arabs here on Clubhouse, all Arabs, these women, most of them, 98% of them don't have hijabs on. 98% of the men don't have beards. Probably 100% of them are not praying because they spend all their time on Clubhouse trying to pick up people and committing sins. These are the people that attract the jinn. The jinn can only harm you and only possess you if you're a person that is not practicing your religion, not fulfilling your obligations, or your belief system is corrupt. For example, you're like some of these Arabs I have here listening to me right now on Clubhouse. They say that they're Arabs, come from the Arabic world, but they'll tell you that they don't believe in the hadiths. They'll tell you that unless it's a hadith qudsi, for example, they'll say, unless what I'm teaching you is from a hadith qudsi, they don't accept. This is corrupt aqidah. This is corrupt belief system. So yes, jinns can possess people like that. But if you are a person that is strong in your knowledge, your understanding of this religion, that's why the Prophet Muhammad said every Muslim needs to have a teacher and every Muslim needs to seek knowledge. And that's why Allah has commanded us. He said, seeking knowledge of this religion is an obligation, because unless you know this religion and understand it, how can you practice it correctly? How can you protect yourself? Okay. So if your iman or your faith, your aqidah, your belief system is strong, you understand your deen, you ain't innovating, you ain't deviating, you know what la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah means. Can't no jinn possess you. Can't no jinn do nothing to you except do like they did to Umar, run away. And keep coming back, but run away. If you're a person that's living in sin, because there's a lot of people out there who do have the correct belief system, they do have the proper knowledge, and the proper understanding of the religion, but they're choosing to do things that are haram. They choose to smoke marijuana, for example. They choose to lie, for example. They choose to fornicate. If you're a person that's committing sins, these are the people that the jinn can possess too. They can possess those who are weak in their iman, weak in their practice, and who are sinful. Okay, everybody understand it? So that's the first point. And that's why none of you as my students should be afraid of possession. Because all of you, inshallah, you have the correct belief system because you learned it from me. And all of you, inshallah, are practicing your religion because you fear Allah. So none of you have to worry about possession. When you get sick, don't say the jinn possessing you. If you have mental issues, take your medicine. Don't sit there and say you're possessed by a jinn. Okay? And so now that you know what type of people the jinn possess, that brings us to the question here on the screen. What will cause a jinn to possess those people? If you are a person that doesn't practice your religion, if you are a Muslim that's living in sin, if you are a Muslim that doesn't have the correct Aqidah, what will cause your jinn or any other jinn to single you out? Well, there's many reasons. One of the reasons may be that perhaps the jinn that's possessing you fell in love with you, because it happens a lot. I told you guys about the story of Khalid bin Walid. The hadith is authentic. Okay, how one of the female jinn fell in love with Khalid bin Walid, but his iman was so strong he ended up killing her. When she took on the appearance of a human and tried to come at him, he put his sword right through her. Okay, so that happens. The jinn may desire you. They may like you. They may fall in love with you, because remember, the jinn are just like us humans in regards to that. Allah gave the jinn free will just like he gave us. And the same laws and the same rules that we have to live by, the jinn do too. The jinn fornicate, they adulterate, they drink, they do drugs just like we do, knowing it's haram. So that could be one of the reasons why a jinn may possess a person. Okay. Also, another reason as to why a jinn may possess a person is out of hatred or anger. Maybe you went camping with your family and you know the jinn live in the forest, they live in the woods. Maybe you went and urinated behind a tree and you ended up urinating on a jinn and didn't know that the jinn was there. Or maybe you were out fishing with your family and you were throwing rocks out, in the river, and you hit a jinn and killed its child. Things like that out of anger. If you are a person that's not practicing your religion properly, or your belief system is not correct, or you're sinning, that jinn will get angry and say, okay, I'm getting ready to mess that person up. Okay? So these are some of the causes as to why they would try to come after you. It's not like they're just singling you out. You could have done something to them. That's why the Prophet Muhammad taught us how to handle ourselves in all situations. He taught us that when we go to the places where the jinn live, to be careful. Okay? Just mention the name of Allah. So that way, if there are any jinns around that camping area, they'll leave. Because if you mention Allah's name, the jinn will leave that area. So that's why we have to, and we're going to talk about that today following the Sunnah. That's why it's important for us to follow the Sunnah of the Prophet and do the things he commanded us to do to protect ourselves. Okay? So now that brings us to the big question. What do we do if a jinn has possessed a person. And again, I want to reiterate, unless you are a person strong in your aqidah, unless you have knowledge and understanding of the Quran and the Sunnah, unless you are practicing your deen correctly, you better stay away from that. If a person's possessed, you contact people who specialize in that. There are different sheikhs out there who specialize in removing the jinn. Okay? And how do they do it? Well, and this is all this stuff works because this is what I had to do too every day at my job. We have to remember, guys, that the jinns are servants of Allah just like we are. The jinn were created to worship him just like we were. The jinn have to abide by the Quran and the authentic Sunnah just like we do. The jinn have to follow the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam just like we do. So reading the Quran is not going to get it. If a person's possessed by the jinn, the first thing that we do is we have to talk to that jinn. We got to try to figure out why that jinn has taken over that person. And that's a lot of talking. For example, myself, when I worked with the population I worked with, when I would come to work, they would always give me a heads up. Oh, so-and-so, she's a jinn, Layla. She didn't take her medicines. She's gone. She's no longer here. She's acting like a devil. She's urinating. She's pulling out her private parts. She's eating dung. She's cursing, attacking, killing people. You know, I would be prepared. I'd go to work and the first thing I'd say is, okay, let's say, for example, Melissa. Why are you in Melissa right now? I don't want to take my medicine. She didn't want to take the medicine. And their voices get just like that. Their voices become just like that. I'm not taking that medicine no more. They'll start cussing, using profanity, spitting, even digging in their private parts. That's the main thing. If it's a female, she'll start sticking her hand, her fist up in her vagina. If it's a boy, he'll start sticking his hands up his rectum, pulling his penis out, and they'll start flirting with you. I like you. I want you. I know you want me. Oh, they're filthy. That's how you know they're possessed. I mean, they're talking just as filthy as it can get. But even though they're spitting, even though they're cursing, even though they're slinging dung at you, you have to talk to them. Talk to them. Find out what has upset them. You ask the jinn, are you in love with this person? Well, I knew it wasn't in love with my client, so I didn't ask that. But if it's a regular person, say it's Latifa, I would say, are you in love with Latifa or something? Why are you in Latifa? Why don't you let Latifa go? And they'll tell you. They'll actually tell you. If it's a person like the population I've worked it with, I would say you just just know that the person's off their medicines, or you just wanted to possess them, just to tick the people off because you wanted to try to make me mad. Yeah, I'm sick of you, Layla. Why are you still here? Why don't you go somewhere else to work? We don't need you here. We hate you. They always talking we. It's always we. And I figured out why it's always we. Because remember, you got your personal jinn in there and you got another jinn. We don't like you. We. They always use we. Okay? So if the jinn has possessed the person due to love, then what you have to do is talk to that jinn the same way you would talk to a human being who is fornicating. You'd have to remind that jinn, you know it's haram. You know that Islam, that Allah commands you as a jinn to stay away from humans. You know that this is the #1 rule that Allah gave you, jinn, that you can never come near a human. And what are you doing in love with her? You can't have her. You got to be married. A human can't marry a jinn. We can't be with jinns. We can't procreate with jinns. You have to talk to that person like that. And then when that happens, oftentimes they'll say, well, she agreed. She loves me too. Latifah allowed me in here. She in love with me too. Then you have to tell her, well, this goes against Allah's commands. We're different beings. We're different creatures. So it ain't about reading no Quran yet. The Quran comes later. You have to sit there and rationalize and talk to that jinn. And when the jinn starts to calm down and see the logic, then you start reading the verses. And you don't just read any verses. If the jinn took that person over because of love, you read the surah on fornication. You read what Allah says about adultery, what Allah says about fornication. You remind them of what the Prophet Muhammad said the punishment is. That's why you have to know the Quran and the Sunnah, because you're going to have to do a lot of what the Prophet said to them too, because they're obligated to follow the Sunnah just like us. Okay? Sometimes if you talk to a jinn and you ask them, why did you take the person? This is most of the time. Most of the time when a jinn possesses a person, it's because that person hurt one of them. You know, that's why we really have to do what the Prophet said and say, A'udhu Billahi, or call upon Allah when we go to places like the mountains and the valleys and the desert. Because oftentimes we're stepping on their children and because we can't see them or we're hurting them. And if the jinn tells you, I took Latifah because she went to the beach with you and Aisha, and you remember you were there, Layla, she threw a rock and it hit me in the head. Then if they tell you something like that, you got to tell them, well, look, she didn't mean to do it. You're part of the unseen world. We can't see you. Remember, Allah tells us that he doesn't hold us accountable for our mistakes. You want Allah to forgive you for your mistakes, don't you? Yeah. Well, then you need to let Latifah go. You need to get out of her because she didn't do it on purpose. You have to talk to him. It ain't a bunch of Quran reading like y'all think. It's talking and rationalizing with them. And you have to remind them, remember, you were too close to us. If you saw me and Latifah on the beach at my timeshare, we said Allahu Akbar, you should have left. Well, I like how Latifah looked in her, in her caftan. Well, you should have lowered your gaze. You got to talk to the jinn just as if you talking to one of us, because they live by the same rules. Well, you shouldn't have been looking at Latifah. You should have lowered your gaze. And I'm telling you guys, if the person is really possessed, they ain't going to be sitting there making noises like a lot of people think. They're going to be talking with you just like this. It's a conversation. It's a back and forth. In the case of my clients I used to work with, I didn't have to ask them these questions because I knew they were possessing them because they can, because my clients were not mentally cognate. And you know, this is why, and it's wrong. A lot of people say that people who are retarded are possessed by the jinn. That's not true. Although their jinns do possess them a lot just to make us angry. But if they're on there, if they can be controlled, okay? So with my clients, I would say, you're doing this because you know you can. And I used to tell them, but guess what? I don't know what I used to ask them, what are you getting out of taking her body now? The pen is lifted. I would tell them, she's not held accountable. You're in this client. You need to get out of her. Well, I'm going to jump into your coworker. And they would do that. That's the scary thing about non-believers working with you. If I was working with another Muslim, we'd hold them down and say, get out of her. The pen is lifted. You can't have her. She'll probably end up in paradise. You'll be in hell. But if I was working with a kafir, which was a lot of times, you know, they would say, okay, well, I'll leave her and get in your coworker. And they would leave her. And they go right into my coworker. I look around, my coworker's being slammed into the walls. And she would be like, nobody's hitting her, but she's being bad. And we'd have to grab the coworker, lay her down, and that's when I do the Quran. I'd start saying, because there ain't no reasoning, because my coworker don't believe in Allah anyway. So we'd have to grab the coworker, lay her down, and they say, Layla, get busy. And I'd start with the Fatiha, and I just start reading the Quran. And we would just hold the client down until the jinn left. But with a person like us who can think, a cognitive person and Muslim, with another Muslim that believes, you know, you keep rationalizing with the person. You keep reminding them what Allah said, reminding them what the Prophet said. And then you read Quran, but you're reading the verses of the Quran that relate to the reason why that jinn possessed the person. Okay? So expelling the jinn, to remove a jinn, it basically entails talking to him, reminding him of what Allah and the Prophet said. It's not just reading Quran. And a lot of people ask, well, how long does it take? Here's the bad part. It can take a long time. It depends on the amount of faith that the jinn has that's possessing the person. If the jinn, for example, that's possessing Latifa is a jinn that believes in Allah, but he's just living in sin. He has a sinful, weak heart. I get that jinn to leave quicker, because I'd have to tell him, you know, keep reminding him what Allah said about this. What's going to happen on the day of judgment when you stand before Allah? And Allah said, have you dragged by your balls and thrown in hell because you came to a human and took it. You know, if they start feeling guilty, then they'll leave. Those jinns are easier. But the jinns that are unbelievers, that don't believe in Allah, it can take days, it can take weeks, it can even take months. I've had to deal with jinns who took over my clients, and my clients would stay in my client's body for 2-3 months. They'd have to keep that client tied down. The only peace that the people would get is if I came to work or another strong Muslim came to work, or we would go in there, we'd go one-on-one with the client, and we could keep it at bay. But as soon as we leave, they'd have to strap that client down. So it can take weeks, it can take days, it can take months, depending on the iman that jinn has. If it's a jinn with a dark heart, that's an unbeliever. It could take a long time. But if it's a jinn that believes in Allah, you know, but he's weak or sinful, then it can leave quicker. They are just like us. Jinns are just like us in that. And that's why removing them entails much more than just the Quran. It entails talking. It entails pleading. It entails admonishing them, reminding them. And that's why only those who have knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah and the knowledge of the nature of Allah's creation can succeed in doing this. Now, I've had other co-workers who were Muslims. In fact, the last place I worked, there was a man who was Muslim like me. We were the only 2 Muslims there. He ended up leaving because he got beat up. One of my clients became possessed and knocked his back out because he wasn't strong in his Aqidah. He stopped going to the mosque. He stopped learning his deen. You know, we were living in Ku Klux Klan territory. Weren't no mosque there. I don't know why he even moved there. And I used to ask him, brother, why did you move here? Okay. We had one of my clients, her Jinn took her over. That client was triple jointed. She could turn her head all the way around. She could take her leg and reach it up over and take it to her back. She was the worst I've ever had. It would take 10 of us to hold her down and restrain her. I remember I was off work. In fact, I went to Tennessee with my family. I took Jayla and my mother and daughter to Tennessee. I was on vacation for just 4 days. She was out of it. They called him into work because they say only people that can handle her is Layla and him, but they don't know he wasn't handling her. It was me because his Akida was messed up. But he went to work to try to get the overtime. He was there only 30 minutes. They said that they heard something fly through the door and they found him laying on his back. She broke his back. They had to squat him out. And he ended up retiring from work because he couldn't work. His back was broke. And they called me on vacation and said, Layla, please get back here. She put him out. I said, yeah. I told him not to deal with her by himself. So I had to come back to work after my vacation. And we, I ended up talking to her, to her Jinn, and her Jinn ended up leaving her. Okay. Because her Jinn believed in Allah. But her Jinn was sinful. So every time she got possessed with her Jinn, I can get her Jinn to leave in like 10 minutes because I'd make her Jinn feel bad. But my coworkers who are kafirs, she was kicking their butts and possessing them. And my Muslim coworker, he wasn't strong enough, so she just took him out. Subhanallah. She didn't possess him. But she knocked him out and took his back. So again, not everyone can deal with the Jinn. It takes, just like not everyone can give dawah. It takes a true daya, a true caller. A true caller knows his religion. A true caller understands the Quran and knows the Sunnah. A true caller practices what they preach. It takes a true caller to expel them. Otherwise, they'll beat you up or possess you. And so that's all you need to know about Jinn possession. That's it. But we have to stop thinking everyone's possessed. Like I said, if a person's possessed, you would know it. Have any of you ever seen The Exorcist? That's how a possessed person is. That Exorcist was based on a true story. That was the best portrayal of Jinn possession I've ever seen. The way that woman talked in that movie is how they do. Their voices get like this. The way that girl turned her head all the way around, the way she masturbated, the way she put stuff in her rectum, that's how a possessed person acts. They're not themselves. They don't look like themselves. They take on a whole different appearance. They walk differently. They talk differently. You can tell if a person is scary. It is a scary situation. If a person, we need to stop saying, oh, she's possessed. No, she's not. She's just sick, or she's pretending. But she ain't possessed, because if she was possessed, you wouldn't be standing there. And she would have her fist up her vagina. I'm telling you, the females put their whole hand up to their elbow in their vagina. The men will stick their whole fist up to the elbow in their rectum. They'll pull their penises like you ain't never seen pull before, because they're trying to hurt the person too. Not only is the Jinn, trying to anger you because they laugh. They think it's, but they'll laugh too when they're possessed. When they do silly things, they'll pull their rectum and penis because the Jinn are stupid like that. and they're trying to hurt that person. If the person's faking, she ain't gonna stick her fists up her behind and up her vagina like that, because that's painful. She ain't gonna take herself and throw herself out a window or throw herself into the wall because it's painful. So real possession, you don't want to see it because you ain't gonna be able to handle it. You want to see some real possessions. That's why Ibn Taymiyyah, he did a whole treatise on, which I agree with some of it, but not all of it. He did a whole treatise on people who are developmentally disabled. He said that anyone who is developmentally able is possessed. I disagree with that, because that's what I worked with, the developmentally disabled, for 36 years. Some would become possessed, but not all of them were possessed. Okay? You can't say that just because a person is developmentally disabled, they're possessed by Jinn. No, that person is disabled. But can their Jinn possess them? Yes. Why do they do it? To make you mad. To make you mad. And because they know they can. Because even though the person is not held accountable, because the pen is lifted, that person still has a Jinn assigned. Remember, guys, every human being has a Jinn assigned to them when they reach puberty, including the people who don't have intelligence. So their Jinn will possess them because they can. They'll tell you, I did it because I can. Well, what does the law say about you doing it? I don't care what the law say. Shaitan likes it. Oh, they'll talk about Shaitan too. You can tell when a person's possessed because they love Shaitan. They'll talk about how handsome he is. Oh, I've heard Jinn say, oh, Shaitan, you don't like him. He's fine. He's good looking. Well, for a Jinn, he is good looking. He ugly to us. And they'll say, I don't care what the law say. Shaitan likes it. I got her. Shaitan likes I'm possessed. Well, what is shady? I used to tell them, shady is a lady and a mustache. They get mad. Don't say that, Layla. And I would tell them, shady is a lady in a mustache. Stop saying that. They don't like you talking about Iblis. If they're possessed, they don't like it. They get angry. You're talking about Iblis. Stop. So like I said, you can tell when they're possessed, because they will talk and say things to let you know, yeah, I'm a Jinn. What you gonna do? I don't care about the law. I don't care about the prophet. I like Iblis. They'll tell you. He's handsome. He's strong. Oh yeah, they talk. All right, so I'm gonna stop right here for today. If you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead and type them. And also, again, a lot of you were asking me about what Ibn Taymiyyah, like I said, some of what Ibn Taymiyyah says, I agree with, and his treatise on that. But not all developmentally disabled people are possessed. And a lot of times their Jinns will do that to them because they can. But we can't say that just because this person's disabled, she's possessed. That's not true. I don't agree with that, with what Ibn Taymiyyah says, because I've worked in this field too much, and I've got some clients that were never possessed. They were never possessed. Okay. All right. So we're going to stop right here for today. I want to remind everybody that we have another class. The next class is at 7 o'clock. That class will consist of myself and Dr. Ibrahim Jamali. We will answer the question, why? Why should we Muslims follow the Prophet Muhammad and not a scholar from today? Because this is a debate that you find many Muslims saying, and arguing about. Why do I have to follow him when I can follow a Imam so-and-so, a Sheikh so-and-so, a Mufti so-and-so? That's going to be our discussion on Living the Sunnah today. Okay, so that will be at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For right now, I'm going to close out on Facebook. Be back here at 7, and I'll broadcast to Facebook, the lecture then. So Subhanakala Humu wa bihamdika. Ashadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.